was only yesterday I was at Alton Park for the British Superbikes, and now I'm already here on the north coast of Northern Ireland, getting ready for the Northwest 200. I'm here in the Jackson's Racing awning where my bikes are being prepared. I've got Supersport, Superstock and Superbike, and those are the classes I'll be competing in, ready to go. A radius on the inside, so you've got to put it down. The big change is jumping to Honda from where I was at BMW the last time I was here. But I know Andy and Alan from Jackson's Racing. I rode with them in 2017 in Supersport at Isle of Man TT. So there's a bit of history and like friendship with the team. So it's not fully new, but yeah, it'll be the first time for me on a Honda at the Northwest 200.
Better to have it, not have it. Johnson has got Josh Brookes. Obviously, you ride for the Dow team in the British Superbikes.
Yeah.
How much different is your Superbike now to what the one you ride in the British Superbike Championship?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of a hybrid. I've selected a few parts that I like and want to be on the Superbike, so like brakes and suspension and a few key bits like that. But a lot of it is sort of very similar to the Superstock. So it's not exactly my British Superbike spec, but it's not a Superstock bike either, which, as a lot of people would understand, some people ride their Superstock bike in both categories. So I do have a separate Superbike. It's just not exactly the bike I would race in BSB, and it's obviously with a different team. As you mentioned, I ride for Dow Racing in BSB and riding for Jackson's Honda here at the Northwest 200 and Isle of Man TT.
Yeah, so I think we're going to get spoiled with the weather this week. So as a rider, that should calm things down. You're not having to worry about missing a session due to bad weather and stuff. So obviously with you jumping in a new team and a new bike, that should make you a little bit more relaxed for the week.
Yeah, even if it wasn't that, I'm just relaxed because I'm going out onto a nice, warm, dry track and enjoying myself. Ultimately that's what we're supposed to be riding motorbikes for in the beginning, is for the love of it and the joy that it brings. So with the sunshine like this on the north coast, it's not many better places to be.
Ah, that's good to hear. Thanks very much, George, and good luck this week.
Pleasure. Thank you. The first session was for Superbike, so everyone got wheeled out onto the grid like a normal racing start procedure, and then led off row by row. The session was shortly after red flagged for oil that had been sprayed on the track from an engine that had blown up, heading towards University Corner at the end of the long straight there. Even with only the short number of laps, it was already very apparent that we had a serious instability problem. The bike would feel like it got into a nervous weave in a straight line. I was not even confident to go full throttle in 5th and 6th gear. And to further compromise my top speed, the gearing was too long, so I wasn't able to get the bike to rev out in the correct places, and definitely wasn't getting up to full revs in the top end. After some lengthy delay for the cleanup, we got going again, and it was then red flagged again for exactly the same reason. Another bike had blown up at the end of the long straight and once again put oil all over the track. Because of the lengthy delays of cleaning up the track, the Superbike practice was then abandoned and they'd moved on to Supersport. And before I could complete a lap, the session was again red flagged for a crash that occurred at the Mill Road roundabout. The Supersport bike felt like it was it's the bike I've ridden the least, and yet it was the bike that seemed the most sorted. When I rolled out, I was like, oh, you know what, I don't really need to do much with this, it seems pretty good. Oh, okay. I did feel like it was bombing, but then when you said it could be the tyre, I was like, oh yeah,
I think you've got 3 laps under your belt there.
Yeah.
That might prove valuable come tomorrow night's race.
Absolutely, yeah. I need every lap I can get. All these bikes are, I haven't ridden a supersport bike since TT last year, and it wouldn't be a bike I'm regularly riding. So, all motorcycles operate and do the same thing, so we can't make excuses that we don't know what it's going to do. But it's just to refine the package and make it competitive. You need as much time on the machine as possible to make it work to your liking. But I think the main thing out there at the moment is the course conditions. So normally we're dealing with rain, and surprisingly, rain is well, not too surprisingly, but the water helps wash the track and clean it. Because we haven't had rain for quite some time here, I believe, in Northern Ireland, there's so much dust and debris and dirt and grit and grime. It's really actually quite a surprise. And you think that, with the sunshine like we have today, the track would clean up and rubber in really nicely, but there's just so much grit and debris on the surface that the track isn't becoming grippy and nice to ride just yet. Obviously, not as many laps as we would have hoped today either.
Yeah, I think that is compounded by the fact that we've had very, very few laps out there altogether, so the track just didn't clean up. It's going to make tomorrow's job a little bit more difficult for you, because the laps that you've lost today, effectively, you're going to have to try and put them to good use tomorrow, and then, of course, we're going racing tomorrow night.
Yeah, but this is just the nature of the Northwest. Sometimes today is completely a washout. We make it work when the day comes good the following day. So it's nothing that we can't, make the best of and just deal with. So, I'm pleased that it's sunny. It's just surprising that the track isn't as good as the day feels.
An Aussie who loves this sun, where did that come from?
Who would have thought, hey? But, we're all positive here. I've got a little bit of work to do on the Superbike to get happy with that. It's more on the electronic side. I feel like it's got way too much intervention with the traction control and anti-wheelie. But the little Supersport bike seems to be right on the pace. So just got to do a few more laps on that and find a bit more in myself.
Well, you did win a couple of World Supersport Championships on the little one, so
races, championships.
You've got a little bit of history of that. Josh, good luck for tomorrow. Yeah. Hopefully that we can get done tomorrow what we need without too many problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I speak for everybody in that we just hope that we can have a smooth run tomorrow and everyone can have a great time on track and enjoy it.
Thanks for talking to us, Josh.
No problem. Thank you. No problem. I'd built up really high expectations for the Superstock bike because I'd rode it at Alton Park a week before the opening round of British Superbikes, and it worked so well. I said something along the lines of, hey guys, just put it in the truck, don't touch it, it'll be perfect, ready to go. And to my surprise, it also, similar to the Superbike, had a very nervous weave in top speed. At this point we started making fairly big changes to the chassis position, making the front higher and the rear lower, and trying to make it a more stable bike, but it wasn't really helping, and the nervousness in a straight line was still really there and very apparent, and it's given me quite a lot of anxiety. To ride on the street circuits is dangerous enough, and then to have a bike that's unstable was really make me quite uncomfortable with the whole situation. We'd said about removing all the electronic interventions, so that was removing the traction control and removing anti-wheelie, so they weren't influencing the bike at all, and this made a big step, made me a lot more confident, but it also meant there was more work to do because the throttle felt more active, and I needed to calm the bike down in other ways. And it also became apparent how much the electronic intervention was actually a problem, because normally you expect traction control and that sort of thing to assist, but in this case, because it's a public road and we're doing such high speeds, the rear wheel is leaving the ground so often, so regular, that the traction control is always trying to do its job and operate effectively, but all it does is slow you down and stop the bike from moving forward, and even reducing some of the control I have for how I want the bike to steer and pitch and change balance during a corner.
Because the 600s lack the pure horsepower of the Superbike, the gearing can be quite critical, and just one tooth can bring it outside of its best working range. So we changed a combination of front and rear sprockets, so a half tooth longer, and it was better and worked really well on my own, but I recognised the need to use a slipstream during the races, and I knew it would be on the rev limiter in that situation. So we did then make another change again, which would have been the equivalent of one tooth longer, and that's what I used in the races, and it seemed to work really well. At the start of each session, you line up on a grid and you let off one row at a time, but once the session's live and started and you come back into the pits to make a change, when you re-enter a live track, you have to line up and go out one at a time from a side road off this left side of the starting line. Because adjusting the chassis position didn't really appear to make much difference, we moved our focus to the actual shock itself, because to me it felt like the front of the bike would dip down when the rear of the bike would hit a bump, and I felt like the bike was transferring the energy. So rather than the shock absorber absorbing the bump, it was easier to lift me up than it was to compress the shock. So with every bumping me up, we would then pitch the bike forward onto the front wheel and make the bike feel unstable. So this was probably one of the biggest areas of change that made a big difference. So we'd dramatically softened off the damping in the rear of the bike so it was more compliant over the bumps, and then also stiffened up the front of the bike, which was at some points feeling a bit soft, particularly on the Superbike more than Superstock. And this also helped the bike to stay in a straight line and more stable at top speed.
Is there plenty of dampening in the front?
I've just closed the dampening on the front.
Okay.
Just on the compression side, because it looks a bit soft.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It felt very soft on the front. I'll just try this then.
Try this and fucking see.
We were kind of at the low point with the Superbike, because we'd kind of turned off a lot of the electronic, or all the electronics, and that's where the bike became difficult to ride, and I lost confidence in it, and so I went into the race on a bike that doesn't steer and doesn't feel like it's turning properly, and it was just kind of like the worst of all the variables. So then a little bit of that negative energy that I was holding from that race, because I was kind of thinking to myself, what am I even doing here? I feel like I'm a beginner and I'm not comfortable. I'm literally just rolling around, circulating, because I don't dare go as fast as I can, for fear of the bike kind of throwing me off. So I know it sounds like I'm really dramatising the situation, but when it's not nice around on a street circuit, it's really not nice. So. We refined the package for the superstock bike, because like I was saying, both superstock and superbike were both performing in the same way, but it's the same electronics package on both bikes. So I'm hoping that the improvements we made in the superstock will carry over now back onto the superbike, because it was like a different bike. It was like a different bike, different me. I rode out on the track and I was like, oh, it's good. You know what I mean? I can hold it full throttle and I can overtake people and I can brake and get stopped. So yeah, I sort of finished yesterday and quite positive. I was quite real happy about. I mean, obviously a 6th isn't a great position, but you know, I was riding around with Hickey and sort of feeling like normal on a motorbike again, and like for the first time, actually like sort of flowing with the track a little bit. What I should have been doing from the day one. So it was quite a strange sort of turnaround yesterday afternoon. You know, just to go onto the next bike and then just be like, oh, okay, that's better. That was better. Yeah, he's better. I was ready to go home after the first race. I was like, this is not me. I tell you, I was actually like really pleased to see Hickey. I was like, someone I know. So I'm always riding with people I've got no idea who it is. I don't know what they're like at racing. And now I'm going to the corner, same as the Supersport bike. I've got no front end confidence. I'm just like riding in with the front up here. It's just got no great cornering. A lot better than it was. So much better. Superbike, I go through 5th in station, and then I go to 6th and just sits there and goes boo. Whereas the stocker, I'm actually getting up to 6th, and it's actually revving in 6th, which is good. Yeah. Rise, I should say. Yeah. In a bit of bigger picture, we want to try and get a nice, comfortable bike that I can go to TT on. And actually, yesterday in the Superbike race, I was like, how am I going to go and ride this at the Isle of Man TT? So, yeah, so I mean, I really needed that change of direction to give me some confidence and move forward. And I felt like luckily it came, you know what I mean? Because you could easily have not found that. We sat here thinking, what am I doing here, you know? I genuinely feel like if I'm going to the race with a bit stronger, you know, mental perspective, then I could probably find a bit more in myself. But you know, when you've been riding a bike that feels like it's trying to have you off, it's far from confidence inspiring.
Supersport race went good. I didn't feel like I started the race particularly strong, but obviously we had the red flag, and I feel like the pattern had kind of followed the same form in both the restart and the original start. So I kind of set off a bit steady and then built into the race, which, like any motorcycle race, that's not a viable option. You've got to be fast from the offset. So a little bit sort of, it was a good race, but it wasn't probably as good as it could have been. But I feel like after where I started the event, just getting comfortable with the bike and being able to, just compete at all feels like a win in some ways, because we really did have a lot of work to do to get the bike working well. I definitely got more in tune with the Supersport bike at the end of the race, but it's too little too late, you know what I mean? I don't know what my lap times were or exactly at the end, but I'm sure they were far better at the end and closer at the end than they were at the start of that race. So I kind of got a little bit of that negative vibe out of my head as I was learning the Supersport bike more, but I feel like I kind of carried that energy across and didn't kind of relax into it straight away. The next Superstock, I ran on 3 times. I ran on in front of the pits there, and then I ran on at Metropole, and I ran on at Mathers Cross. I was trying to avoid having to go in the stop box, because I knew I was coming in with too much speed, but then I didn't want to do the stop box thing, because that kind of ruins it. But then in attempting to make the corner, I was like, oh, this ain't going to work. So I sort of bailed out and had to go into the field and do a loop and then come back. So in hindsight, it would have been better to do the stop box, but I messed it all up. But so it was full of human error. But the start of the race, I was with the group in front, and they were like eking away from me off the corners. So I was trying desperately to make the time back on the brakes, but it's such a risky strategy, because the smallest change of like wind direction or slipstream or braking point, any variation has huge consequences on where you are in the corner. So if I made up time 10 times on the brakes, it only takes 1 in those 10 times for it to go wrong, and then it goes wrong in a big way. So it was a poor execution of riding on my side in that Superstock race. I feel like I've got a better understanding of the Honda and where it needs to be and how it needs to be used. It's almost like you need to understand it and kind of ride to its strengths and overcome its weaknesses. And I think like Dean is setting a prime example of how that can be achieved. It's not something that I can just switch on in an instant. I have the ability to adapt, but not in such a short space of time. So I feel like I kind of learned a fair bit about the bike yesterday afternoon. like I said, we definitely made improvements. Not as big a step as we made from like say like the Wednesday to the Thursday evening, but it was still a step in the right direction. So now we have a clear direction of what helps. It's just how to minimize the let's say the sacrifice and maximize the potential. So the bike needs to be a lot softer in the rear than we've been using it, and this may even in some way, in an odd way, assist me when I get BSB. It might give us a direction for how we can improve that package.
I went over to the winners enclosure to say well done to my teammate Paul Jordan, who's also racing in the Super Twins category. So that's great for everyone in the Jackson's racing team.
It's all heading in the right direction and giving us a clear understanding of why the bike's not working. But it's like that suspension black art where you've got to find a coupling where you get a suspension technician to change all the internal settings, and then make it all kind of competitive and work. So yeah, the final race was like my best showing, but there's still definitely room to improve. I think the speed of it come better as well because I was actually able to get off a corner a bit more confidently. It improved the top speed, and I'm only expecting that to improve again if we can make the package a bit more friendly. Feel like I'm not good at taking risk on street circuits. I don't think it's something where I excel. Sort of took a few liberties where I felt I could, and when it went wrong I just had to sort of go to the grass for a second and run wide. So yeah, I feel like I am taking risks, but not in the really aggressive manner that needs to be up in the front. I just have to accept that that's the results I could offer and bring, and I'll put my hand up. It wasn't good enough, but I'm still here to tell the tale, so I feel quite chuffed.